Welcome once again to Christchurch Methodist URC Church, Ilkley, here on YouTube. We are Christine and Philip Gibson, and we've been part of the Christchurch mission on the Grove for the last 3 years. Previously, we were both local preachers in Billericay, Essex, where we lived the best part of 40 years.
We certainly never imagined at the beginning of March that here in Ilkley, we would have been in and out of lockdown, and that our church building would still be pretty much closed with no Sunday services therein. Those of you who've been kind enough to watch our YouTube channel over the weeks and months will have become aware that in addition to these reflections, we have continued worship across the Zoom platform, thus enjoying different styles of worship prepared by a variety of our people. It's the Zoom service on a Sunday which has allowed us to maintain a form of fellowship and support throughout these difficult times. And Zoom does allow us to see things about our friends that we perhaps weren't aware of before. Are all we churchgoers missing our buildings, or are we being presented with new opportunities? It's in these unprecedented times that God's people get more and more resourceful. The Zoom platform and YouTube are being much used by churches and businesses across the country. Virtual worship, prayer meetings, house groups and coffee mornings show just how active we still are. We're even able to hold church meetings in the comfort of our own homes. Yes, in our own homes. And in my experience, there are many users who are not necessarily aware of the background in the room of their choice. It's behind you, sadly, not a forthcoming pantomime, as theatres may well struggle to present such a show this year. What's behind you nowadays is perhaps a bookshelf. So what do the books say about us? It may be a picture of somewhere or something meaningful, a family photograph full of personal memories, or simply a vase of flowers or a plant. We really are seeing into the background of many different people in Zoom services, on TV discussions, or such programs as Have I Got News for You? Ian Hislop's cat and Paul Merton's curtains feature prominently. These backgrounds tend to reveal quite a bit about them and thus us. Our family backgrounds often determine the people we are and will become, as well as illustrating from where we have come, our ancestry, so to speak. So be mindful of what's behind you. Go on, you have permission to have a quick look. We are using Zoom to record these thoughts, and our background is a blank wall. Those of you who are technically minded may be aware that it is possible to have a virtual background, which I have used in meetings just for fun. I've been in Scarborough, at Headingley Cricket Ground, and even in Bradford Cathedral. Those places may tell you something about me, but I'm not using any this time round, as they can be a bit unstable, and I keep disappearing. Some of you may think that would be a good thing. For these virtual backgrounds to work well, I would need to repaint my wall green, and that's a step too far, even if I had the abilities of Steven Spielberg, there's a mouthful, or George Lucas. There I go again, giving you further insight into my film preferences.
Our backgrounds do then reveal quite a lot about us and our ancestry. I come from a family background where our ancestry has always been of interest. My father traced his family tree back to the 1700s and did it in the pre-computer days when all details had to be researched from parish records and censuses. Some of the programmes on TV that I enjoy most follow this theme, ones such as Who Do You Think You Are and Long Lost Family. The former seeks to trace the family trees of well-known celebrities, and the latter finds birth families of people who were adopted. In both cases, there regularly emerges the comment, "I just want to know who I am." There is, I believe, in all of us, to a greater or lesser degree, a search for identity, a need to find out where we fit in the bigger picture, as well as to identify others who are part of us, as we are part of them. Some of who we are comes from our genetic makeup. And when long-lost siblings get together, they often comment on how alike some of them look or act. They see in each other something of themselves, and in so doing, it helps them recognise themselves. Of course, in both programmes, unpleasant elements about a relative or ancestor may be revealed. In my family tree, I have an ancestor named William Weir Leachman, born to an unmarried mother. It seems obvious that his father, a well-known lawyer in the area, did not wish to recognise the baby as his. So the child's mother gave her baby the father's name, William Weir, to which her own surname was then added. When we learn of similar situations in our backgrounds, we see our own failings reflected, and that adds to our picture of who we are. Of course, sometimes we discover impressive qualities in our past heritage. Another of my ancestors, Charles Leonard Robinson, was the first socialist member of Bradford Borough Council and later became a city alderman, while another, Thomas Robinson, was a great advocate in the temperance movement. When we look to such people, we can feel proud of them and may feel their qualities reflected on and into us.
During the poorer weather earlier in the year, when going out was even more difficult, the television became the resort for many. Even programmes in an afternoon were watched by some. We were interested to see one such programme entitled The Bidding Room, presented by the actor Nigel Havers. The concept of the programme, which was set in Halifax, was to enable people to bring along items about which they welcomed information, and then they met a panel of 5 dealers who bid on the items in question. Before they did so, the resident expert, an auctioneer named Simon, provided information on the items and indicated a price to the seller. This part of the programme was approached in such a way as to build up and generate tension, with Nigel Havers suggesting that the seller might ask Simon the expert that all-important question: how much is it worth? The all-important question indeed. In our worship services today, the Bible reading is taken from Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 to 20. Jesus knew that the end was drawing near, and thus he needed all the time he could have alone with his disciples to ensure they understood his message for the world and their role in conveying it. There was still, even now, the issue of whether the disciples truly understood. Was there anyone who recognized him for who he was, as the future of the faith depended upon it?
So Jesus asked the all-important question: who do people say I am? Some say John the Baptist, they answered. Others say Elijah, while others say Jeremiah or some other prophet. The tension is mounting as Jesus asks his disciples, "What about you? Who do you say I am?" And finally, Simon Peter answers, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." This is a joy to Jesus. Peter has actually got it. In his response and affirmation, Jesus tells Peter that he is a rock, and upon this rock, Jesus will build his church. And so with this great accolade comes great responsibility, as Peter is trusted with the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Artists over the years have had a field day depicting Peter at Heaven's Gate with an enormous bunch of keys. I don't know about you, but being trusted with keys can be a challenge to us today. Think of the keys you use regularly: house, car, church perhaps. They can become a big bunch, and how do you remember where they are? Only last week we lost, or rather misplaced, a set of car keys, but thankfully they turned up a number of days later. Spiritually, we who say, "You are the Christ, Son of the living God," are ongoing custodians of the keys to the kingdom. And through our thoughts, words, and actions on a daily basis, we form part of the rock on which God's church is built. The keys are a privilege, a responsibility, and a challenge to us all in our daily walk with Jesus. May God bless us all on our journey of faith.